Today I would like to talk to you about the greatest man that ever lived. And it's probably not who you're thinking about. The greatest person that ever lived. The most man of any man. And he used to be celebrated, but now he's uh, denigrated and spit on, just like, I don't know, let's say if people were to do that to George Washington or Jesus Christ or Gandhi or Martin Luther King, and many people do that to those people. But it's a lot more politically correct to do it to this person. We even have a federal holiday for them. And they are the reason for our existence. They are the Big Bang of the New World. They are the first person to actually get on a boat, cross the Atlantic, and come back. Well, what about the Vikings? The Vikings didn't know where they were. They got back there, they crossed back there a few times, couldn't survive, left. What about the Chinese? Well, they probably never made it to America, and most of the evidence shows that they did not. And if they did, the world didn't change. There was no cultural interaction, cultural exchange, nothing like that. Nothing new was born. Same for any Polynesians that hit South America, the Celts that supposedly reached North America. That I have no problem with the Vikings totally coming all over America. Sounds like the name of a bad porno movie, doesn't it? Sorry, I just heard the words that said it. People want to believe that, and it's probably fact. Kukulkan Khan being of Phoenician descent or something, that's fine too. But Christopher Columbus discovered America. Well, how could you discover a civilization that was already existed? Because it was discovered by the old world. The old world that kept records and had written history, had the invention of the wheel, came across to North and South America, found it here, and yes, those people had civilizations, but they had civilizations akin to the Stonehenge civilization, and that was the highest degree. Now that's remarkable, especially in a jungle area. Hell, Africa never did anything like that. Central America, where it was just jungle and mountain, they erected something amazing, and I think the Aztecs and Mayans should be praised for that. Teotihuacanes and Clima people and anybody else down there, especially the Incan Empire. They were great, but as soon as Christopher Columbus hit this new world and brought news back that there was a whole that well, he thought it was Asia. He didn't know it was a new world, but he had at least had the balls to go across there. And the Spanish came across their slavery and everything, and he gets blamed for it. The one guy who's changed the world, who's basically pioneering spirit, is the same that led us to the moon. No, I'm going there. I'm not going to die. I'm going to get there. Thought he was getting to Asia. And most people didn't want to go on the trip because they thought they would die. They thought, well, even if you can go around the Earth, and it was known you could, there's too much water. He said no. The world. He was using older maps, saying the world's much smaller, which probably were made because people probably thought they were running into Asia when they were hitting America in ancient times. And we know there were Europeans that reached America long before Columbus, and they were continually doing it. I have no problem with that. But as for discovering, actually, uniting two worlds, Columbus was the first Latin American. As I've said before, Mexico is not Mayan. Mexican is not Spanish. Mexico is the Mayan slash Aztec slash anybody else who's there meeting the Spanish during the slave trade, growing up in that, and that's modern Mexico. And you can't take the Maya out of Mexico just like you can't take the Spanish out of Mexico. Mexico is Roman Catholic, Spanish speaking, but it's also so much more than that because there's an indigenous people, there's a colonial aspect to it, it's slavery, all this other stuff, a rich culture. Whether it's good or bad, whether you like it or not, whether it's politically correct or not, doesn't matter. in the way that the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, who Columbus was not, uh, could have been a Jewish Italian, Latin, or a Latin Roman Catholic from Italy, discovered the New World. The way we treat him up here, such disrespect of being ashamed of his holiday and everything like that, it's not how the people in Central and South America and the islands, they see him as, yeah, they know their history. The Pinta de Santa Maria, yeah, that's us. They get they're proud. They don't have these weird conflicting white hatred in them, and they're a mix of European, African, and Native American. And just look at Brazil. You see people there that they could come out of Russia or Poland. They're brothers and sisters with people who look like they came out of Africa. I mean, it's so mixed. And yeah, there's still a caste system down there, and blah blah blah, and this and that. But people want to blame everything on Columbus. Oh, it's terrible. Listen, I mean, the idea of the Sioux or the Iroquois being irritated by Columbus. It was the English that settled in America about 150 years later that caused all your problems. The Spanish were the original gold diggers. They didn't want to farm the land. Those were the later people of Hispaniola and Cuba that were born and raised here, the non-peninsulares, that came in and said, yeah, let's do something with the land. And it was actually the mestizos that did most of the slaughtering of the indigenous. So you don't have a clear-cut path of blonde-haired, blue-eyed people killing indigenous people, but you do in North America. But they don't want to blame Drake or Raleigh or John Smith. Well, John Smith's an ass and didn't really do anything. They want to blame him or Henry Hudson or anybody else. But Columbus, easy target. The the world was in the medieval era, the Middle Ages. When Columbus hit the New World, when Constantinople fell, when the Reconquista was completed, basically all 1452 to 1492. With the completion of the Reconquista in 1492, Columbus discovering America. Basically, yeah, I know the Renaissance began in Italy much earlier, which is a reason for Columbus, people like Columbus, and the Venice merchants and lingua franca and all that. But Columbus changed the world more than anyone, more than Muhammad, more than anyone. As of just actually changing the world, changing the maps, changing of our idea, the place in the world. Uh, that's Columbus. Now let me go back and retroactively say the greatest man in the world as a non-religious figure, because people are going to say Jesus, St. Paul, Martin Luther, Muhammad, Confucius, Zoroaster, and they'd all be correct. And you can't really put one above another. But when you take out the religious aspect of it, the greatest human being, the one that had more effect on anybody than anything, and that affected everybody around the world as soon as he discovered it, was Columbus. The slavery issue, nobody gets angry at the Old Testament prophets and kings for having multiple wives. Nobody gets angry at uh, anybody for being a man of their time. Oh, there was conflict with the Moors or Catholic supremacy or slavery. None of which was Columbus responsible for. All had come before him, and none of those actions was he responsible for after he died. So how you can pin any of that on him is just ridiculous, or even the slaughter of the indigenous people. Well, he said in his diary that he felt this way. Who gives a fuck? He didn't do any of it. Well, he's cruel to some of the people who settled there, and yeah, he was just as cruel to the Spanish as he was to the indigenous people. It's some account, some people's version of it. But what do we remember the great people for? For what they did. Gandhi, a lot of the shit that he did, he was a total perv and creep, and he hated black people, and hated Africans, and he had liked putting his fingers up young girls' asses and liked being around naked girls. Do we remember him for that, or do we remember him for the liberation of India? Should we always nitpick and go into the personal lives? No. Gandhi's a great man for liberating India, and Columbus is a great man for changing the world. And the double standard is ridiculous when applying them to say the great men. Peace be to you, and praise God for Columbus and the beautiful Latin American culture that happened when he got here. That was the inception. He was the sperm, basically. America was the egg, and it was impregnated with Latino culture. It's a good thing. Well, no, it doesn't even have to be a good thing. It just is. Was your birth good? Is any birth good? No, it just is. Yeah, it's all beautiful. Some people wind up being Hitler. Some people wind up being Columbuses. It just is. Peace.